Good morning. Welcome to the IGSHPA Town Hall for June. I appreciate everybody's attendance this morning. I'm Jeff Hammond with the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. I have a few slides to go through just to update everyone, and then I'll introduce our speaker, Rob Derksen, and we'll get going on this month's Town Hall. It's an exciting topic. All right, I'll start with some news and updates. A lot going on with IGSHPA right now. If you're interested in other town halls or dig deeper webinars, just go to the events menu at IGSHPA.org. You'll find all of those listed through the end of the year. There's also an abstract submission form on that same page. It's at the top. If you're interested in doing a town hall or dig deeper, fill that out and we'll add you to the list. We're always looking for new topics and speakers, so we appreciate any interest there. Another item that is worth talking about, the business directory. We announced it at last month's town hall. It's a completely new design. Now you can search by services and products. So it even makes being a business member more valuable because you can find out who's available in your area. And a feature that was just announced this month, the beginning of the month, the member portal is brand new. It's part of our new CRM software. That member portal gives you a lot of options and it will continue to be built upon. It's a members only section, so you'll be able to look at a lot of details that others can't see on the public website. Also announced this month is an upgrade option from multiple individual memberships to a business membership to reward our contractor members, especially for having individual certifications and memberships. You'll be able to upgrade your account. And of course, don't forget about the job board listing. I know it's difficult to find employees right now, so take advantage of the ability to post jobs. Reminder on the annual conference in December. It's not too early to sign up, especially if you're looking for the hotel block. Go ahead and get signed up for that so you can get the best prices on rooms. We're partnering again with National Groundwater Association, and they've given us a great space for the exhibit area. Plus we have, I think, a lot of really good speakers lined up, and we'll be talking about that here shortly. We already have some sponsors. Climate Masters are our platinum sponsor, Grundfos a gold sponsor, Intertech is our silver sponsor, and we have Solace O'Brien as a bronze sponsorship. We still have quite a few available, as you can see from the slide. So make sure if you're wanting to sponsor the conference that you sign up for that so you have your spot. Speakers for the conference, we've extended that deadline to June 14th. We already have about 25 submissions. So we're getting a good handle on topics for the conference, but it is extended until next week. Make sure you fill out an abstract if you'd like to speak at the conference. We are still looking for speakers. It's at the conference menu at the top of the IGSHPA.org page. Just click on that purple button for speaker submission. You can see here the hall is starting to fill up. The yellow and green spots here are exhibitors for the conference. It's in the IGSHPA pavilion like we had last year, but in this case now we're right at the front door. This is the entrance to the hall right here. So as soon as you come in, you're going to see this IGSHPA pavilion. So if you want to exhibit, you'll want to take a look at the spaces pretty quickly. You can see we still have a lot of 10 by 10 booths, but only one 20 by 20, and we can combine some 10 by 10s to make 10 by 20. This town hall, as well as dig deepers, are eligible to use a contact hour, 0.1 contact hour per town hall or dig deeper. Once you get 0.5 CEUs, then Sally Stevens, our member services coordinator, will send out a certificate. So these can be used for certification renewals. Just some housekeeping once Rob starts. If you have any questions, send your question in the chat. At the end of Rob's presentation, I will read those questions and we'll stay online to answer as many as we can. If we don't get to all of them, then we'll follow up afterwards. Just out of courtesy to other attendees, please make sure you mute your microphone unless you're speaking. And we will be recording this session for viewing later. So you'll see a notification of that town hall available on the IGSHPA website. It's on the IGSHPA YouTube page. So we'll see that here shortly. And then one last item before we turn this over to Rob. This is just a standard presentation to make sure everyone knows where IGSHPA stands as an organization. The upcoming presentation represents the opinion of the presenter and does not represent any official position, opinion, or endorsement of any products or services by IGSHPA or its members. IGSHPA town halls and Dig Deeper webinars are for member updates and education on the latest information in the geothermal heat pump industry and are not meant to endorse one technology or brand over another. It's the speaker's responsibility to disclose any conflict of interest or position that may arise in the content of the webinar. All right, so without further ado, let me introduce our speaker, Rob Derksen. In 1998, Rob joined Michigan Energy Services as a co-owner and developed the business into one of the largest geothermal installers in the country. To date, Michigan Energy Services has been involved in over 4,000 geothermal installations across Michigan. In 2017, Rob started D4 Consulting to develop a much-needed software package called Sketch Pro that simplifies the design and sales process for HVAC systems to help contractors more quickly complete their quotes, deliver on-site proposals in a single visit, and provide the ability to offer geothermal and other HVAC system options for comparison to homeowners. Rob has a passion for education-based selling, which requires a clear understanding of a customer's wants, needs, and goals, and then applying the right products to the customer's criteria and allowing them to choose what is the right fit for them. So with that, I stop sharing my screen. We'll turn this over to Rob, and I very much appreciate part 2 of our series on comparisons from conventional equipment to geothermal. Thank you very much.
Look forward to participating in future town halls and Dig Deeper. So if you were at the convention with IGSHPA in December, some of this information might look familiar to you, but understand my point of view in what I'm presenting today is coming from a contractor position. And so we've been in the geothermal industry. Well, this is my 32nd year, and we've installed, like Jeff said, north of 4,000 systems. And there's a lot of things we've learned over the years in doing that. And so I want to share some of those observations and such as it pertains to geothermal versus doing conventional work. Our company is a geothermal first business, meaning we do about 85% of our work is geothermal. We do some conventional work when we're asked to. So from a business standpoint, I just kind of want to share some of the things that I think we all have in common. And you can see by the bullet points that number one on the list is we want to be profitable, do right by our customers, value our employees, which is really important today, obviously, with the difficulty in finding good employees. We want to make sure we're retaining employees and showing them the value we have in them. Always being open to learning something new about running our business. And that's how some of this information I'll present today come about within our organization as we're involved in other presentations much like this, is just opening our minds open to some new ideas. There's really no trade secrets. I've been working with a number of companies over the past 2.5 to 3 years implementing the software I designed. And I do see that we share a lot of things in common, and we just want to be a company that executes as best we can. And then again, we want to be profitable. So just another point in profitability is a really important process. So one of the things that I've learned over the last couple of years is, in some cases, contractors have gotten so deep in the woods of running their day-to-day business that we can often lose sight over some of the important things that we need to keep track of, and that is understanding what our overhead is and accounting for it. In my examples that I'm going to show you today, I've kind of based all of my calculations and examples on a relatively small company with an overhead of about $500,000 with annual revenue of 1.5. Logically, if we wanted to make a net profit of 10%, we're going to be looking at, hopefully grossing about 43% on each job with a 33% cost scenario for overhead. And so as we look at these and we move forward, what I want to stress is that the difference between the different types of products and the different styles of jobs that we're installing as contractors, whether it be new construction or retrofit, and then everything from gas furnace and AC or heat pumps all the way through geothermal, and how those impact our profitability and our labor force. If we looked at our overhead simply as a percentage of sales, and in the previous example was 1.5 million, our overhead would be 33%. But if sales are down, our overhead is now a greater percentage of that sales revenue number. And so our net profit obviously would drop if we're not adjusting for our sales revenue or percentage of overhead to revenue. And this is one of the things that we found probably about 13, 14 years ago now, was that you can really be fooled by percentage alone. And so we began to look at our profitability in a different light. And what we did is we did some calculations, and we said, if we have a workforce of 6 installers and we could invoice those installers for 2,000 hours a year, we have 12,000 hours to work with. If we adjust for efficiency, and we all like to believe that we're 100% efficient and with our time, but we're not. And we use about an 80% billable factor. So now I'm working with about 9,600 hours of billable time with my employees. So if I divided that number into my overhead costs, my overhead costs me about $52 per man hour, per field hour of my employees. So obviously, if I'm now looking to make a net profit of 10%, I need to have a gross profit of somewhere around $57 for every hour my workforce is on the clock. So let's take a look at what that really means in terms of the types of construction or installations we're doing. So we'll go through the order here of new construction variables and then retrofit variables. In this example of a new construction traditional, this would be a new construction ducted system furnace air conditioner package. And you can see that based on these calculations, and these were numbers that came out of my company. So these are numbers that we're using within our own business. We'd be looking at a little over a $10,000 gross profit, and the percentage looks pretty good, right? 41.37%. We're investing about 180 hours of labor in this particular project. And so what I want you to focus on in this particular example is that my gross profit per labor hour is at $58. Now, if you remember the previous slide, we had a break-even point of $57.20. And so at this point, I'm making overhead. I'm getting my bills paid to my vendors, but I don't have any margin left in there for net profit at the end of the year. If I make a move over into the air-to-air side, and we're talking about high performance, cold climate kind of air-to-air product, you can see that the commission or the gross profit rather is a little higher. Gross profit percentage is a little lower. Labor hours are roughly the same, but we have a better per hour profitability. So now I'm getting into that realm of turning over some better profitability based on the type of product that I'm installing. If we move into the same example with geothermal, obviously with the higher upfront cost and the margins you can get on the product itself, you can see that the profitability goes up in terms of dollars. The gross profit percentage goes down, but when we take a look at the gross profit per labor hour, even though we have more labor hours invested, and that difference would typically be the loop installation in addition to the 180 hours on a conventional system, we can see that our per man hour profitability is looking better. So taking a little bit of a pause here, what we've learned about a new construction in our business, and our business model is a small organization with 12 to 13 employees, is that hanging sheet metal and installing sheet metal products is not a great place to invest our labor force, just because of the number of hours it needs. We obviously are paying skilled labor rates for hanging sheet metal, and we have found that it might actually be better for us to form a relationship with a sheet metal subcontractor and have those folks actually do the metal for us, and we can put a little bit of margin on top of their number and be more profitable over time. And so as we look at moving into the retrofit side, you're going to see that the gross profit per labor hour invested, it does grow pretty quickly. So even in a traditional retrofit of roughly 40 hours of labor, we're looking at $112 per labor hour. If we move over to the air-to-air side, that climbs again a little bit more. And then when we move into the geothermal, our margin per labor hour, gross profit per labor hour is substantially better. Now, again, if you've noticed the gross profit percentage number, we were, initially targeting 43%, but even at a gross profit percentage of 35%, I'm doing much better per labor hour invested than I would be doing a new construction at a higher gross profit percentage. So I share these examples just to really help you take a look at or consider your product mix. In other words, how many jobs of new construction are you doing versus retrofit? Or, what does your specific product mix look like in your business? So let's look at this kind of on a path to profitability. One of the big things about our labor force right now is that we just don't have access to skilled labor. And we are trying to allocate our labor into areas that we can be most profitable as a company and take care of our customers, more efficiently. Also, product availability is a big hurdle right now. I was sharing with Jeff a little earlier that there's a supplier of some air source products there. They're having some difficulty tracking their product on ships. They're produced overseas, and they have switched softwares, and they've lost track of where their products are. And our vendors are not able to give us any potential lead time or delivery date on products. Having, the majority, if not all, of our geothermal products in North American-based production helps us in the geothermal community offer the geothermal more often and have better delivery times to take care of our customers' needs, especially in scenarios where the product has failed. They're in a no cooling scenario. We personally had an example last week that a system was condemned, and the geothermal replacement was going to be much faster than a traditional replacement, and so the geothermal system was the system of choice because of the speed at which it could be installed. And so keep that in mind as you're looking at other products and types of things to install. So if you look at the traditional new construction and we look at our profitability and how many hours we would need, or how many jobs rather we would need to break even as a company, you can see that if I had 100% of my business was based on traditional new construction work at a gross profit average of 10.6 per job, I would need 47 jobs this year to break even. And I would be investing 183 hours per job on average, with a total of 8,600 hours annually. If we kind of backtrack to one of those first slides, we're working with about 9,600 hours. So we have a little bit of room in there, some extra time we could put our employees on some other projects. Now, if I look at the air source, the next line down, we're looking at 39 jobs to break even again, about 7,000 hours per year. And then moving into the geothermal, you can see again, we have fewer jobs to break even because we have a better gross profitability on each project. And we're also reducing the amount of time needed for our workforce, which opens up opportunities to do more jobs. Obviously, we're not going to produce, only 27 jobs a year. But as we look at a mix between new construction, retrofit, and the different types of products we're selling, we can really kind of see how we want to focus our business for the best profitability. And then if we take our step into the retrofit examples, you can just see, you'd have to do 108 jobs with traditional retrofits to break even at 2 jobs a week consistently 12 months a year. And as we know, we don't have a consistency in our jobs. They don't come twice a week. They come, a few jobs in our shoulder months of, January and February. We have a slow time for traditional retrofits or any retrofits. And then we have this peak. And so we start to consolidate all of our work in this very short period of time, in the second and third and part of the fourth quarter of the year. But if you come all the way to the bottom row there, you can see that if we focused 100% of our time on geothermal retrofits, which, might be, pie in the sky thinking, but if we could spend all of our time doing geothermal retrofits, we would have the ability to do 3 times the job, almost 3 times the work as compared to traditional retrofits. Because of the break-even point and the number of hours we would have to invest in each project. So if you were taking a look at your own product mix, if you will, your business mix, I would encourage you to look at each job and do the job costing and understand, where your labor is and where your overhead is, to understand, should you be focusing more on the geothermal side of the business? And they are a bit more difficult sale. It does take a little bit more time. We do have to educate our customers. I'm not sugarcoating this. If you're new into the geothermal business, I really encourage you to work closely with your suppliers and continue to join organizations like IGSHPA to gain as much information and tips on how to sell the product and how to get into offering it more often. One of the challenges that we faced as a company is lead generation. We have historically been poor marketers. Currently, and I'll be candid, is we almost spend no money on advertising now because we've been in our marketplace in geothermal for so long. We have a great referral-based business, and we're replacing some of our original installations now. So we're fortunate in that vein that we don't have to spend a lot of money on marketing. We used to spend a lot more money on marketing, but we spent it poorly, and it was hard to trace, and the effectiveness of that was difficult. But one of the things, being a predominantly geothermal or geothermal first company, that we have missed out on, that many of you on this webinar may have the advantage over your local competition, is that if you're offering conventional product, you have an opportunity for customers that are coming to you for a furnace or an air conditioner or a propane furnace or fuel oil system. You have an opportunity to provide them with an education in a manner that is not a high pressure sales pitch. But that is a potential geothermal lead coming through your door that's making the phone call to you for other reasons. So keep that in mind, that you have that opportunity. So just kind of a recap is are you tracking and your job mix? And do you understand, kind of what your mix is? Tracking your actual labor hours per job, as opposed to just labor hours per week. One of the other key factors is, do you know what your true labor cost is, or loaded labor per employee? I'm happy to share information that we've gained from other sources, how to calculate your loaded labor cost, where you're able to take into account your benefit packages for your labor, your vacation hours, your sick time, your days off, things like that, and build those into what your true labor cost is. I can share with you that say a $25 an hour guy in our business might have a true labor cost of somewhere between $32 and $33 an hour once we factor in benefit packages. And so as you're calculating your cost of doing business and what your true retail labor rate is, you want to be able to take into account those other benefits. These are places where oftentimes, and what we've learned from the past is we've missed on where we thought our profitability should be at the end of the year because we're missing some of those items within our calculations. So taking a look at what the true cost is for labor is important. And then generating the sales leads, as I mentioned, if you have a really strong marketing program, consider if you can convert some of those leads that are coming in the door for traditional technologies and convert them over to a geothermal opportunity simply by education. Obviously, staffing is a difficult process right now. So how can you grow your geothermal sales leads? I think I've spent my entire career more as a consultant than I have as a salesperson, even though, I've sold a lot of geothermal, but I've never taken the approach with a customer that says, I'm here to sell you X system. So one of the key points I think I want to stress is never assume that the customer has investigated all of their options. Just simply because they've called you for a particular product doesn't mean that they've researched any of the alternatives that are an option for them. And if we take that consultative approach and just ask them if they've considered anything else in their decision-making process to open the door for conversation, focusing on what they can do and not what we think they should do. I think that's a big hurdle for people getting into the geothermal realm, or people that have been in geothermal for a while and are struggling with that price objection, that first cost objection. One of the things that we always say to our customer is, I'm here to tell you what is possible, and then you can tell me what's practical. And by offering the product that they asked for first, maybe it's that traditional system or an air source heat pump system, but then offering them the option to look at a geothermal package of one shape or form or another, whether it be a split or a packaged unit, just to show them what is possible. I have an incident that happened probably in, I'm going to say probably 1998 or so, maybe 97. I thought I was listening to my customer really closely when she told me what she wanted in a geothermal system. And we put the system in, we got the contract. And about 3 months later, she visited our home show booth. And we had put in an entry-level product with a PSC fan and a single speed compressor, about as economical installation as was available in the market at the time. And obviously we're at the home show and we were displaying our flagship product, and she asked us about the product and what was different about what we had sold her and installed in her home. And after explaining the differences and showing her what it was, she asked us what the cost difference of that would have been. And at the time, I think it was about $3,000. And she looked at me and she said, well, why didn't you offer me that? I would have paid that. And that was my wake-up call to always make no assumptions and show the customer everything they can do from the entry-level side to the top-end side, and allow that customer to land with what they think is best for them. Obviously, through our conversations, we can identify what their buying triggers are and identify the opportunities that those present. We're seeing today a number of customers that are more interested in carbon reduction or getting the gas meter off their home. They're interested in safety and indoor air quality and all of those other benefits that geothermal systems provide above and beyond traditional technologies. And so adjusting the way we communicate those benefits of geothermal to our customers and not just focusing on the economics. I can tell you in my market here in Michigan, we are still at a price advantage versus natural gas. So somewhere about a 20% cost savings versus natural gas and traditional air conditioning. In one utility and another utility, we are upside down, so to speak. We're about 10% more than natural gas to operate. Yet we sell geothermal in both of those utility markets because of other buying reasons. The customer is making choices not simply based on the energy cost of the product. Some people are looking at going solar, and they're looking at opportunities in the future to be able to offset kilowatt hour consumption or offset energy by being able to produce their own power, which obviously goes without saying, but you can never offset the natural gas or the propane consumption, right? So we can't produce our own fuel source that way. So, and then the other thing that's really kind of moved the needle for us, and I think it's moved the needle dramatically for solar. We've seen solar PV systems just take a skyrocket, hockey stick kind of growth, is the offering of financing each and every time on every proposal. And when we're offering financing, we're not asking the question, would you like to finance the system or do you need financing? We're never making the assumption that somebody's going to need it. We're making the assumption that it should be an option, a payment option. And that's how we present it. We always present the system price inclusive of any, kind of financing costs that are out there. We offer cash payment discounts if they choose not to finance. But it's simply letting the customer know that their option of payments includes financing, cash, check, credit card, whatever your methods of payment that you accept are, but putting that financing item first. And what we're seeing with some great financing options that are available in different markets are customers that don't want to part with money. Especially if they're having to make a decision on an HVAC upgrade today, they might have money in the market that while it's not doing well now, they don't want to pull it out and move that money into an HVAC purchase. They want to buy time. And by offering financing as an option without a prepayment penalty, they can leave their money in their investment where it has time to recover from our current market conditions and not have to put off their HVAC upgrade. So we're making it easy for the customer to do business with us and not have to, repair aging equipment and continue on this path of high energy cost when they can get into geothermal and take advantage of what's available to them. And then remember, it doesn't have to make sense to you or to me as long as it makes sense to your customer. 32 years now in the business, sometimes we think some of our younger buyers might be making a mistake in choosing a technology. They might be overextending themselves, or we tend to want to make sense of a product we sell first, because if it doesn't make sense to us, how could it possibly make sense to a customer? And I can tell you in my experience, I have sold many systems to many people that economically don't make sense. There's no reasonable payback period or return on investment because their alternate systems are either a very low cost that they're comparing it to, or their energy needs are very low, very small, well-insulated home, for example. But again, if it makes sense to the customer, I would say, why wouldn't we open up our opportunity to, be the recipient of that revenue and profitability within our businesses? And in speaking with some folks in our market where the cities are trying to go no carbon in the very near future. The hurdle that customers are coming across in trying to electrify their homes is contractor resistance. We literally have contractors in our market that are refusing to install electrified products because they don't think it makes sense for that customer. And so they're turning down that customer's business because of their own personal opinion on a topic. And so I think that's one of the things that as contractors in the industry as a whole, we can do a better job of listening to the reasons why our customer may want to do something and accepting their reason, as long as we can provide a product that meets their expectations and we properly set the expectations for what the customer is going to expect the system to produce and provide. And then let's not forget our service technicians rather. Our service technicians truly have the strongest relationship with our current customers. These folks are the ones that are inside the home when a customer has a problem. They either have no heat or no cooling, and they're solving that problem. And so they have a very strong relationship. They go in as as an advisor, and our customers hold our technicians in very high regard, and they value their opinion strongly. So they're the expert, and they can truly introduce customers to new technologies because they're not the salespeople, right? The technician is never viewed as being the salesperson. They're not in a high pressure scenario, and they're really viewed more as the neutral party. And so educating your service technicians about the benefits of the various products that you offer and adding geothermal into that conversation. And they don't have to close the deal. They don't have to price the job. You can, and I could get completely sidetracked here talking about menu pricing and things like that, because there's a lot of things you can do to have that technician offer a proposal for a replacement for a customer in some scenarios, but they don't have to close the deal. They can remain that neutral party for you and just simply plant the seed so that one of your comfort consultants, salespeople, comfort advisors, whatever you call your sales team, just open that door so that they have a kind of an open conversation waiting for them, and the customer's been made aware of maybe some options that they weren't aware of before, and they're open to conversation. And so our service technicians can be part of our sales force, just in a different way. And I would strongly encourage you to try to take advantage of their knowledge and expertise and the position that they hold in the customer's eyes as being the expert and somebody that's very trustworthy. And then taking the consultative approach again, just focusing on the customer and making sure that they understand it has to make sense for them and not for you. So with that, this is my contact information. I'm happy to have conversations or take anybody's email if you have any specific questions. That way we'll obviously answer questions today as well, but feel free to reach out to me. And my goal in this whole process, and being a member of IGSHPA, and why I formed my consulting company, was to try to help grow the geothermal market beyond where we're sitting today at 1.5 or 2% of the HVAC business. Electrification is absolutely our future. Whether you agree with it or don't agree with the movement, it's happening. And one of the things that I don't want to happen is to be on the backside or the outside looking in as electrification continues to move forward. So I would encourage you, if you're not already strongly into the heat pump industry and market and doing some geothermal or even air source, obviously we want to focus on geothermal in our industry, but expose yourself to opportunities to become the local electrification expert in your market. And that's going to really open up a lot of opportunities to present geothermal as a viable solution to your clients. So I appreciate the time to be able to present this today and look forward to any questions we have.
Great. Thank you so much, Rob. That was really helpful to have the contractor's perspective on geothermal. Excellent presentation. We do have some questions in the chat section here, and if you have any questions, please submit those in chat, and I will read those and ask Rob his thoughts on it. The first question comes from Bill. It's back to your path to profitability slide. Bill says the slide seems counterintuitive. A new geothermal system takes 3 times the number of hours to install versus a retrofit. Are you including the distribution system in the new build and assuming the old distribution system fits the ground source heat pump in the retrofit installation?
So yes, on new construction, Bill, the assumption is that those hours are including the distribution system, and in a retrofit application, we're including a simple plenum and return duct modification where we don't have to get into, substantial duct modification, which has been in our market where we've been fortunate. That's been our findings in our market, but it could certainly change. And so I would encourage you to take a look at what's commonplace in your market and run the numbers based on your local scenarios.
Okay, thank you, Rob. I assume mostly in basements in your market.
That is true. Yep.
Okay, very good. Scott asks, same slide here, the path to profitability. He felt like it had a couple of minor mathematical errors. Would you mind looking at that slide again? Maybe we can take a look here on a couple of these notes. You want to share your screen? It's that path to profitability chart.
Yeah, let me just back up here.
Yeah, it's number 13 there.
All right.
It says the 47 times 183 is 8601, and 108 times 41 is 4428. So probably doesn't change the decisions, but you wanted to point those out.
I appreciate that. Yeah, there might have been some rounding in there or something, or it might have been done at 11 p.m. or something like that. Thank you, Bill.
All right, thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
The next question comes from Scott. Do you consider total lifetime costs in your analysis to the homeowner or customer?
In these scenarios, we don't, but yes, you should be looking at the total lifetime. Some of the trying to stop screen share here. Some of the softwares from manufacturers now have the ability to profile a replacement cost at an interval which is appropriate for the technology. So there's a lot of third-party research out there that will show average life expectancy of certain products in different regions. And so you can apply that scenario. So if you were on a coastal scenario, for example, and your outdoor air conditioners might last, 7 years under a salt air environment, you could apply that, replacement cost in 7 years or multiple replacements during the life of the geothermal application. And it's important to look at that if the customer is planning on being in that home as a long-term residence, right? So we have to also consider the customer's plan within that residence when we're looking at life cycle costs, because they might or might not take advantage of the full life expectancy of the geothermal or alternate products.
Great. All right. Thank you, Rob. Steve has a question. Are you installing liquid to liquid? Is the hydronic distribution subcontracted?
So we do liquid to liquid or water to water, and we don't subcontract that portion at this point. We do all of our own radiant work. So all the in-floor PEX tubing and manifolding and connections back to the water system are all done with our own crews.
Okay, very good. I don't see any more questions at the moment. I do have a question for you, Rob, on the ground loop side. Do you subcontract the ground loop, or is that something that your company installs?
We do both. We do horizontal installations with our own staff and our own equipment, and vertical applications. We do subcontract a local driller to do what we call a drill, drop, and grout. And so they'll install the vertical bores, grout them, and leave the stubs above grade. And then we come in with our crew and excavation equipment and do the manifolding and foundation penetration, flush and fill. So it's kind of a combination of both. And we're finding we're getting into more urban environment now, and so we are doing more drilling applications. And I will tell you that my profitability per hour is better on a vertical loop, even though I'm giving away the drilling costs, so to speak, to a driller. My time investment, my profit per man hour is better on a vertical loop than it is when we're doing the installation work on the horizontals.
Very good, thank you. So on a vertical loop, when you're subcontracting that out, is that something that the homeowner is paying the driller directly, or does that go through your books?
It goes through our books, and we do add a margin on. We do mark up our subcontractor because we do handle all of the organization of that and scheduling. So we try to make it as easy as possible for our customers to do business with us, so that they don't find an easier way to do it with another contractor that might be handling more of the project. And another example to that, Jeff, is electrical work. We don't have a licensed electrician on staff, but we do work with a consistent contractor that does all of our electrical upgrades and wiring, but we handle all of the scheduling. So the customer needs to make one phone call, and that's to us, and then we handle any sub trades needed.
Oh, excellent. Okay, it helps to have some of those discussions so that people who are getting into the geothermal market, they understand some of the challenges and how another successful contractor might be doing it today.
Yeah, absolutely.
We still have about 10 minutes left for questions. Feel free to type your question into the chat. In the meantime, we have one that just came in. Bill says, "Congrats on the 4,000 jobs." And
Thank you, Bill.
if you have any other suggestions or recommendations for contractors who are just getting into geothermal, maybe we can talk about that for the last few minutes here, and I'll watch the chat screen to see if we have any other questions.
Sure. I think if you're new to the geothermal industry, one of the things I always focus on is just to make sure that people are partnering with good organizations and good suppliers, a good reputable manufacturer, and don't be afraid to reach out to somebody in the neighboring community and ask some questions. I think what you'll find in the geothermal industry is we're all more willing to share our successes and our failures for the betterment of the industry. And that hasn't always been true with conventional technologies, where maybe we've been a little bit more territorial. So yeah, definitely reach out to your peers. Okay.
We did have a couple more questions come in. David asks, how many jobs require a panel upgrade?
Yeah, that's a kind of a market thing. So in my market, we're near the city of Ann Arbor, which is a pretty old city, right? So a lot of those homes are definitely, given a panel upgrade is a standard. If you're dealing with a 150 amp to 200 amp panel in most homes, by the time you remove a central air conditioner unit, that frees up one of those spaces, one of those 220 spaces for you, you'll likely be okay without a panel upgrade. But each market's going to be different. If you have a relatively new development, something in the last 20 years, you're less likely to need a panel upgrade than if you're in a market that has 50 or 60-year-old homes.
Okay, very helpful. And of course, if it's an air source heat pump, they would need a panel upgrade as well.
Correct.
Okay, the next question from Steve. How do you view the future of hydronic distribution going forward, particularly with new construction?
Well, I think if we separate out the hydronics from the geothermal conversation, I see we're seeing a lot more people that want hydronics, at least in a small area hydronics. Maybe the basement floor and tiled, bathrooms, things like that. It's when you combine hydronics and geothermal heat pumps, you're really taking this combination of two, fabulous technologies, but they're also both high cost technologies at the end user level. And then you add on that the redundancy and the need or desire for central air conditioning. And so that can be a very specialized customer that has the resources or the budget to absorb, the best of everything they can do. And they're out there. But I think in the industry that in trying to grow the industry, and I'll make this point, is that if you've been in the industry like I have a long time, we've tended to sell to the same 1.5% or 2% of people that can afford us because they have the resources, they have the available cash to make this purchase, right? And I'll go back to stress on financing is those that need geothermal the most and need energy efficiency the most have been excluded because we've always led with our very best foot forward, as opposed to how can you get into this at an entry level at a lower upfront cost with a reasonable finance package, and maybe be in a positive or a net zero energy calculation from your alternate. In other words, you're paying the same every month for energy and the utility versus, or the loan rather versus the alternative. But you have a product that you have all those other benefits of longevity, et cetera. So I think we need to start focusing on how can we get more people at I'll say a lower income kind of customer into geothermal. And because once we have a home on geothermal and we put that infrastructure in the ground, we have that customer for life because the energy source is installed. And so if we can get more people in today, 20 and 25 years down the road, we'll be replacing geothermal heat pumps with geothermal heat pumps, and that'll grow our business.
Pay now or pay later, right?
Yep.
Great. All right, we have some additional questions here. Kevin asks about contractors. I think this might be a question for me, but feel free to chime in, Rob. I like your question about good contractors. Can the industry expand too quickly? What should IGSHPA do if that is happening? I guess I'll take that on if you're okay.
Sure, go for it.
I think the industry could expand too quickly, and that's something that definitely is a concern. IGSHPA right now is spending a lot of time with our training committees and subcommittees redoing a lot of our training programs to make them more accessible and dividing them up into modules so that we're looking at specific job titles. That's going to make them less expensive, more accessible, and hopefully adopted by some of the local utilities. Contractors, I think, can help that effort by being an IGSHPA member, number one, by getting technicians trained, number two, and really try to work with your local utilities, especially co-op utilities, because a lot of times, they will give you leads, they'll encourage training, and it's just going to help our industry grow so that we continue that quality. Another area from an IGSHPA standpoint is we really want to emphasize standardization and consistency. As you may know, there's a binational standard, the ANSI CSA IGSHPA C448 standard, Canada and the US, and that is in revision right now. There'll be a new edition out in 2023. When that new edition comes out, IGSHPA is sunsetting its 2017 standards. So it's really important for everybody to be using the same language and using the same standard. The standard is great. The way it's written, it can be adopted as code in your local jurisdiction. So that consistency, I think, is super helpful and will help us maintain quality. Did you have any comments on that, Rob?
Yeah, Jeff, to add to that, one of the other things that IGSHPA is doing to help in the industry growth is the relationship that you formed with the National Well Water Association. And I think a big hurdle to growth in the geothermal market is access to loop installations. And so if you're in your community and you have the opportunity to engage yourself with your well drilling community and try to bring some well drillers on board to the concept of geothermal. If as contractors, we can sell more jobs and make the geothermal opportunity a win-win for the drilling folks, then that's going to help us grow the market. That's the biggest hurdle to access. We can build the product, we can train people to install the product, but if we can't put our energy source in the ground, that's going to be a roadblock. And so definitely be active in your market with your drillers and excavators and try to bring some folks into the business.
Perfect. Thank you. We have just a couple more minutes. I'll see how many other questions we can address here. Pete says, understanding how contractors work with subcontractors, I found it a little unwieldy to charge on top of the driller or looper's cost. If there's a problem with the loop, you're responsible for the looper's errors or mistakes. What are your thoughts on that, Rob?
Yeah, 100% correct. You're always responsible for who you bill for. And that's why having a strong relationship is important. We handle all of the design internally. So we do want to take responsibility and accept responsibility for the proper installation. We do have subcontractor agreements with our drillers where if they have any issues with grouting or sinkholes and things like that, they do warrant with us for 5 years to go back and correct any errors that they may have made. And it's been a strong relationship. We've been using the same driller for 20 some years and have a really strong relationship, and that hasn't been a problem, but it does come with risk. And as long as you have some of those good, strong subcontractor agreements, I think it's something you can manage.
Yeah, great advice. Terry asks, how do you handle training of new employees and veterans with regards to installing GSHP installations?
Yeah, you throw them in and you throw them in the trench. You just get at it. We're fortunate that we have a young man that just joined on with us about 7 months ago, and he's ongoing. We're committing to him for a 12-month training program. He's riding with our technicians, and he's really literally the navigator, and he's learning in the field. He had some basic HVAC training through one of the local community colleges as a good starting point. So he had some base knowledge, but we're not throwing them to the wolves. We are literally putting them beside seasoned technicians, and we're investing in him. So he'll invest in us and stay with us for the long term. And so if you can have some sort of agreements and binding employment contracts, if you will, it just takes a commitment on our part as a contractor to be willing to train even people that are coming from outside of our HVAC industry. We need to bring people in and realize that it can be a really good, viable lifelong career and be really viable financially for them as well.
Excellent. All right. Well, it is right at 1/2 the hour. I really appreciate your time, Rob. And it's a great insight into the contractors world. I appreciate everybody taking their time this morning for our town hall. Please check out the website, and you should see the video of this presentation. Feel free to share it. We appreciate any comments. Have a great rest of the week, and thanks again.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.